Hello everyone, good afternoon. So I'm Barış from Netmarble EME region. So first let me introduce myself very shortly before passing to Simon. I've been in this gaming industry since 10 years. We had a leading game company which is called Joy Game. It was leading a leader in Turkey and Middle East region, and then we sold our company to Netmarble. So now I'm together with the Korean gaming giant Netmarble. So Simon, could you please tell about yourself?
Hi everyone. Hi, so I'm Simon Davis. I'm CEO at Mighty Bear Games. I've been in the industry now for about 16 years, and in that period I've done everything from writing music for games, being a tester, working in design production, and now I head up Mighty Bear Games in Singapore. We're a venture-backed gaming studio.
Well, Simon, I'm coming pretty long way, almost more than 10 hours away from Turkey. So I want to ask a very simple question. Everyone asks me every time in such a fireside chat. So are you a gamer?
Yeah, I probably play about 8 to 10 new games a week. Because we make mobile games, you have to stay current. So yeah, I'm always checking out new content, and then at home I'll also play on my Switch and my PC. So I probably spend, I'd say, 20 to 30 hours a week gaming.
Do you have a specific genre that you like, RPG, MMORPG?
I don't have the luxury of being able to pick my genre. I have to kind of know what people are talking about when they talk about games.
By the way, are you married?
Am I married? No, and I don't have children either. So that's probably what. Like, I have a very understanding partner.
Okay. Because everyone asks me in gaming industry, what does your wife say?
My girlfriend is she's very patient, and it's very good for me that she also plays games.
So I'd like to go back to year 2016. You decided to establish your own studio, and you decided to stay at Singapore.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm pretty familiar with Asia, but this is my first time at Singapore. So can you give me more insight why you decided to stay at Singapore? Is it a good location?
Yeah, I mean, there were a number of factors that really played into that. So, for those of you who don't know, I was a product lead working for King. King is the company that makes Candy Crush. They had an office here in Singapore. So I was heading up multiple projects with them and whatnot. And then King itself was acquired, and they decided they wanted to consolidate their operations and move development back to Europe. So we had a long chat with the guys running King, and they offered us the opportunity to go back. But we really liked being here. We think it's a great region for a number of reasons. So it's the world's fastest growing smartphone market. Singapore is a unique place to develop content. It's very Western focused as well. Like, English is the business language. People get a lot of access to English language media, but then you have the Asian influences as well. So it's actually a unique place to create kind of universally accessible content. And then in addition to that, you have an amazing talent pool on your doorstep. So Indonesia, you've got close to 300 million people and a lot of great artists coming out there. Vietnam is 90 million odd people with some great developers. Singapore as well creates a lot of great engineering and business stuff. And then the only challenge really is the design side. But from a talent perspective and from a support perspective and cultural content creation, it's really unparalleled.
So, what about fundraising? I mean, we have the founding partner of the largest incubation center in Turkey. We have more than 60 investments so far, and I know how startups, how it's challenging for the startups for the initial fundraising, especially at the idea stage.
So in 2016, 2017, the picture was very different to what it is today. So today you have one of the world's top gaming VCs based out of Singapore. It's a VC firm called Play Ventures, which launched last year, and it's got Harry Manninen and Henrik Suuranen, two Finns. They're some of the best people in gaming. And you're having now investors from the US and Europe looking at Singapore for gaming investments. But in 2016, it was quite different. So when we began raising, we were speaking to a lot of the local VCs, and they're basically primarily focused on fintech and e-commerce and logistics. and we were really out of their wheelhouse. So we probably wasted 3-4 months trying to raise from people that didn't get gaming. And basically, I ended up going on a world tour. So we did Europe, North America, Korea, and Japan. And we ended up closing a round that was led by Rocket Internet, by Global Founders Capital, which is the investment arm that actually has quite a long track record in gaming. So they were originally in Bitcoin, for example. And other investors included John Limfors from DST, who was an early investor in Facebook. And when we had him on our cap table, then a lot of the original kind of local VCs that didn't get what we were doing were then interested, but by then it was too late. Second round of investment, we ended up focusing on American investors because we had a good pool of investors from Europe and some in Asia. And our last round was led by Everblue, which is an esports and gaming fund in New York, and Macro, which is an LA-based entertainment VC, and Skycatcher does a lot of gaming too. So now there are local VCs that are looking at gaming, but that certainly wasn't the case when we started out.
By the way, Simon is explaining all these in a very comfortable manner, but all this cap table is amazing. I mean, gathering all these names as a very early stage investor, I believe it's a huge success. I mean, there should be a secret sauce that they were so impressed.
We managed to build a very solid prototype, and we had a good thesis. So we bootstrapped the company for the first 6 months. King treated us very well when we left, and we weren't short of money to make the prototype, so that was quite fortunate. We also had the benefit that I'd been in the industry for 14, 15 years at that point, so I had a great network of people that could refer me to these investors that had launched their own studios. So I think having a studio that had all worked together before as well, because we were basically an entire team out of King, and having that pedigree made it a lot easier. And then once you get one of those first one or two strong, big name investors, then they'll want to come in. There's, not to be too unkind about it, but there is a herd mentality in investing, and if people see the validation from a big name investor, then they want to come in too.
Okay, I think that much business is enough. Let's talk about the more fun stuff. So, what about the games? You have developed and launched World of
Legends.
Yeah, World of Legends. So, what's the status of the game?
So, World of Legends was an interesting launch for us. We built a thesis that we then built a game around. So, it was a game built around a business case. We learned a lot from that. When we launched the game did very, very well with a certain user segment. But we found that scaling this particular title was not something that was not really worth our time. So we took what was actually quite a brutal decision to cancel the game within 2 months of launch. Fortunately, there was still plenty of runway left. And that actually was the best thing we could have done. So the game, if we'd have kept working on it, would have eventually been profitable, but it was tying us up. And actually, we would rather go for something that's potentially going to be the next billion-dollar franchise than a game that just keeps the lights on. Since we cancelled that, we've launched one other game already that we went to market within 4 months. So it's Mighty Pets and Puzzles. It's on Google Play right now. And we've kicked off work on a third game with a major partner. I would really love to be able to tell you more about it, but the announcement will be coming in a few weeks. And that, for us, is going to be a game changer. And that was not something that we could have done had we not cancelled the first game.
Okay, then can you tell us how many months you spent for the development of this game?
The first game, World of Legends?
Yeah.
World of Legends was over a year. So with that game, we built all the tech ourselves. So we built the back-end platform, we built all our own infrastructure, we built our own moderation tools. So it's like you're building the car while you're kind of driving down the freeway. So it took longer, but the second game we took to market in 4 months. And our third game, which we're going to take to market before the end of this year, is going to be like a 7-8 month development for what is actually quite an ambitious game. So most studios spend 2 to 3 years making new games, but we are very aggressive in how we build.
I think it's a very brave and very good decision to cancel, to drop the game. I know most of the studios, most of the game companies cannot do it and keep losing and losing money.
Yeah.
So it's impressive.
Thank you.
So if it's not so confidential, how did you get the decision of dropping the game? I mean, which KPI you were checking? if it's not so confidential?
No, it's not. I mean, as someone that's been making games a long time, you can really, within the first week of a launch, know whether this is going to be something you can scale. And honestly, within the first 3 days, we were looking at the ratio of retention at different stages. So day 1 versus day 3, and then after day 3 to day 7. And you could see the evolution of different cohorts. Like it was basically like the ratio between phases of retention.
So, can you tell us a bit about your methodology of development? I mean, I know every studio has its own unique way of working, way of development. Do you have a specific methodology?
It's a very interesting question. I think for us, we're very ruthless with development. So we have a list of absolute must-have features, and we never really deviate from that. We don't let things creep in. We prefer to have very few features at a very high level of polish, rather than trying to, create like a very broad feature set, which is what a lot of studios do. A lot of studios, if something isn't working, they just try and build things on top of that and add other features on features and features. We never do that. Everything we build has to work as an independent pillar within the game. So we're just quite brutal with how we develop.
How do you decide which will be the next game? For example, how did you decide to develop this puzzle game, puzzle RPG, right?
Honestly, we did an internal hackathon and jam for Game 2, and someone created a role-playing game that took a lot of the tech from World of Legends, but was like, hey, World of Legends, the combat was a bit too complex for some players. What if we do like a puzzle Candy Crush style combat? And it actually came out of that. It was something that someone made as an experiment, and it felt really fun. And we had 80% of the tech ready to go, like reused from one game to the next. So for us, it was quite logical. We also looked at the market and we realized there was a gap for this type of game. And this is a genre that we really believe in. It melds a lot of the elements that excite us as players, and also from a business perspective.
By the way, what is your role in the studio? Are you the game designer? What do you do?
So my job title is CEO, and that stands for Chief Email Officer. So a lot of my time is spent doing admin and deals and biz dev and that fun stuff. I used to be a designer. I still get my hands dirty with design at an early stage, kind of conceptual level, just making sure that games kind of align with our studio thesis. We try and create content that's very universal, very accessible. But beyond that, I don't involve myself too closely in design, because the nature of my role means that I'm tied up with 10 different things at a time, and I can't be a bottleneck for the team. They need to feel empowered to design and make decisions without me. And if I don't agree with them, that's fine. I'd rather they take a decision I don't agree with and just take it, and sit there waiting for me to, come back from a trip or answer an email.
You can stay at your chair and wait to see the results. Because sometimes the positions like us, we cannot we cannot keep ourselves doing micromanagement.
It's not healthy. Like, if you need to also let people grow and have that freedom to experiment. So yeah, I have to resist that temptation to be too hands-on. I am heavily involved with design at an early stage, but then once the project gets going, I probably check in every 2-3 days.
In our early discussions, you have mentioned several times open communication with the players.
Yeah.
Also, you have mentioned a couple of times Discord.
Yeah.
So I want to hear more. What do you mean about open communication?
I mean, there's not really that much to it. We, as a studio, all our employees are on Discord. So Discord is a chat service where we interact with players, and we speak directly to our community. Amanda, who sat there in the front, is a community and growth lead at Mighty Bear. And we spend a lot of time interfacing with our players directly, or also outside of work. Like, we'll hang out and chat with them. And it was very interesting. When we cancelled World of Legends, we didn't, even though some players had spent thousands in the game, the community understood, because we'd taken the time to form a relationship with them. And then they came across to our second game, and they're all on the Discord channel for the new game. So we've built a community around the studio rather than specific games, and that's really nice.
So I can keep asking questions, but is there anyone who wants to ask a question to Simon? I think not now, but yes.
So I'm coming from a different startup, but this game thing is unpredictable. It can be successful. It can happen that for 2 years there's no success. So how do you manage the highs and lows in your business?
Well, one of the most important things is making sure there's enough money in the bank to ride out the lows. Like when you get the highs, it's not really a problem in gaming because gaming as an industry is bigger than music and film combined. So when you have a game that makes money, that sets you up for a very long time. I think it's also just about having a replicable kind of methodology and really understanding why your titles are successful. So there have been studios that have had mega hits without really understanding why. I think if you can repeat the same kind of success two to three times and explain how you did it, that's a very solid foundation for a studio. And I think that means that even if the next 2-3 games are not hits, you probably have a formula there. If you look at companies like Nintendo, they've been doing it for 35 years now. Sony have been doing it since the 90s. EA have been doing it since the early 80s. Supercell more recently, since I think they're 9 years old now. They've made $4 billion plus franchises within 9 years. It's a pretty good business. I think they've probably figured out the formula. So it's about really taking the time to dig into the data as well and understanding why your products are successful so that you can replicate it. If you're just developing content and hoping for another hit, you're probably not going to have it.
Let me add something as well. Netmarble has been established on 2000. So since 2000, we have shown that the success is replicable. But of course, you should follow the trend. So Netmarble is the creator of in-app purchase, free-to-play games. But mainly we were a PC game developer and publisher. Now totally we shifted to mobile smartphone games. By the way, I'd like to ask you, for now you are focused to smartphone games, mobile games. Do you have any other plan, or in terms of the industry, do you have any other forecast?
Do I have other forecasts?
In terms of platform, next 5 years, still mobile will focus?
I think it's an interesting one, right? So we've been looking at two things recently, like as trends that are emerging in the industry. The first is the rise of streaming, especially when 5G networks come into play. Like, how is that going to affect the business of developing games for mobile? Are games going to be played natively, or are they going to be streamed? There's something we're looking at, we're thinking about. We've been speaking to a couple of the technology partners. And then the other challenge is business model. So if you look at the regulation, the EU are looking at loot boxes. There's an in-app purchases in general. There's regulation being passed around restrictions about what you can and can't charge for, how you surface information like probability. In the US, there's more regulation being passed. And you're seeing, especially in emerging markets, and I imagine it will probably spread to more developed markets, the rise of subscription gaming services as well. So I know that, can't remember the name, but there's a couple of big subscription services in South Asia for mobile games where all the in-app purchases are included on Android. And that's also a space that I imagine will probably grow. So we're looking at it from a tech perspective, but also from a business model perspective. Like you say, the last thing you want to do is get caught out.
I agree. Especially we, as Netmarble, we totally believe in mobile. But in the next 5 years, the business models may change. Maybe the platform will not, but the business models obviously will change. Do you have any other question, or I keep going? Okay, so what is your future plans for the studio?
Well, as a studio, we're venture backed, so there's certain expectations around that. The goal is really to become the major player in Southeast Asia as a developer and publisher. So I'd like within the next 2 to 3 years us to start publishing other people's content, and then beyond that, we'd like to maybe be the Netmarble of Southeast Asia.
Why not? So my understanding is you are totally focusing on Southeast Asia for now, right?
That's not strictly true. So biggest markets for World of Legends and Mighty Pets and Puzzles are actually Western Europe and North America. Okay. But Southeast Asia is yet to have like a really major player in mobile gaming, and for me that's really an anomaly. Like, I don't believe there's any reason that Singapore can't be the next Finland if you look at it from an infrastructure and talent perspective. So that's kind of the level of ambition that we have.
So you should also share some advice to the startups, to the entrepreneurs who are planning to establish their own studio. What would you say?
Don't do it. No. I would say that it's something you should only really contemplate if you have a track record, because raising in gaming is hard. And unless you have a game that when first time people play it, it just blows them away, then really like your reputation is what's going to make the difference to you raising or not. Obviously, if you're not looking to raise and you want to make indie games, it's very different. But we had bigger ambitions than that. So I think the thing that really was a game changer for us was the track record. So, either go work at a small startup and get experience in the front line of kind of growing a studio, or get like a big AAA name under your belt. But really have something that you can point to when you're trying to raise.
So how old are you?
I'm 36.
36. So you established your studio at around 34, right?
34, yeah. I started in gaming when I was 20.
20.
Yeah, I was still at university. I had to work to feed myself when I was at uni, so I got a part-time job as a games tester.
Well, I'm also telling this to everyone in my region, in my country as well. I mean, if you don't have 10 years experience, you cannot be an entrepreneur. I mean, in many parts, the startup business has been misunderstood. Just after the graduations from the university, you should establish your company. I think it's not the entrepreneurship, it's not the startup philosophy we are trying to deliver. Of course, it's possible, but it's not the idea, right?
It really depends on your industry as well. But for gaming, especially, like, it's a small industry and your reputation counts for a lot.
So, what do you think about AI? I mean, again, on Netmarble side, we are investing a lot to AI because we think one of the future plan for the gaming industry will be customized gaming experience. What's your opinion?
It's something we have looked at, particularly for PvP games, so like bots that are driven by machine learning and that kind of thing. But I think for a small studio, the technology is still slightly inaccessible. I think someone like Netmarble can have an R&D department that builds out these tools, but in terms of off-the-shelf solutions, we're probably a good 5 years away from it being more mainstream. But it's obviously tremendously exciting because if you can have a PvP experience without having to go to the expense of having infrastructure and then also letting people play offline, that's really cool.
So would you like to add anything for our listeners?
Yeah, we're hiring. So if you're looking for a job, come speak to me.
How many people do you have, by the way?
We're 18 right now, but we're looking to add a few more bodies between now and the next couple of months.
Okay, just listen, Simon. You should apply. Well, Simon, I'd like to invite you to Turkey. You would be an inspiring speaker for the Turkish startups as well.
That's very kind. Thank you.
If you plan any trip to the Western Hemisphere, I'd like to host you at Turkey, maybe in such a conference.
We'll have to come by. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for listening to us.
Thanks.
Thank you, Barish and Simon. That's we saved the best for the last. Yeah, thank you for staying by hanging around with us at the founder stage. We come to an end to today's event. We will be officially ending today's session. Yeah, thank you so much.